this is from the book, The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien, written in 1990, right? It contains different soldier stories in the Vietnam rucksacks, or the things they carry on the back, and then other things like that. As I'm reading this excerpt, I want you to think about what we have learned in class about the Vietnam War and who the typical soldier was, especially their age. How old are typical American soldiers at this time? Who's getting drafted?
People over
18 to 25, right? So pretty young. Why do you think the author identifies and knows so much about each item in their rucksack weighs? What are some of the things they carry that couldn't be weighed on a scale? Why did the author describe imagination as a killer? Are we ready? I need you to be here with me. First Lieutenant Jimmy Cross carried the letter from a girl named Martha, a junior at Mount Sebastian College in New Jersey. They were not love letters, but Lieutenant Cross was hoping, so he kept them folded in plastic at the bottom of his rucksack. In the late afternoon, after a day's march, he would dig his foxhole, wash his hands under a canteen, unwrap the letters, hold them with the tips of his fingers, and spend the last hour of light pretending. He would imagine romantic camping trips into the White Mountains in New Hampshire. More than anything, he wanted Martha to love him as he loved her, but the letters were mostly chatty, elusive on a matter of love. She was an English major at Mount Sebastian and wrote beautifully about her respect for Chaucer and her great affection for Virginia Woolf. She never mentioned the war except to say, "Jimmy, take care of yourself." The letters weighed 4 ounces. They were signed "Love Martha," but Lieutenant Cross understood that love was only a way of signing and did not mean what he sometimes pretended it meant. At dusk, he would carefully return the letters to his rucksack. Slowly, a bit distracted, he would get up and move among his men, checking the perimeter, and then, full dark, he would return to his hole and watch the night and wonder about Martha. The things they carried were largely determined by necessity. Among the necessities or near necessities were P38 can openers, pocket knives, heat tabs, wristwatch, dog tags, mosquito repellent, chewing gum, candy, cigarettes, salt tablets, packet of Kool-Aid, lighters, matches, sewing kits, military payment certificates, sea rations, and 2 or 3 canteens of water. Together, these items weighed between 12 and 18 pounds, depending on a man's habits or rate of metabolism. By necessity and because it was SOP, they carried steel helmets that weighed 5 pounds, including the liner and camouflage cover. They carried the standard fatigue jackets and trousers. Very few carried underwear. On their feet, they carried jungle boots, 2.1 pounds, and Dave Jensen carried 3 pairs of socks, a can of Dr. Scholl's foot powder as a precaution against trench foot. What they carried was partially a function of rank, partially a field specialty. As a first lieutenant and platoon leader, Jimmy Cross carried a compass, maps, code books, binoculars, and a .45 caliber pistol that weighed 2.9 pounds fully loaded. He carried a strobe light and the responsibility for the lives of his men. In addition to the 3 standard weapons, the M60, M16, and M79, they carried whatever presented itself or whatever seemed appropriate as a means of killing or staying alive. They carried all they could bear and then some, including a silent awe for the terrible power of the things they carried. I'm stopping here, giving you 2 minutes to write. I'm going to keep reading. Thank you for listening. What they carried varied by mission. When a mission took them to the mountains, they carried mosquito netting, machetes, canvas tarps, and extra bug juice. If a mission seemed especially hazardous, or if it involved a place they knew to be bad, they carried everything they could. In certain heavily mined AOs where the land was dense with toe poppers and bouncing betties, they took turns with the 28-pound mine detector. When the mission involved tunnels, they would take turns crawling in headfirst with a flashlight and Lieutenant Cross's .45 caliber pistol. While in the tunnel, the walls would squeeze in. The flashlight would seem impossibly heavy, and you could find yourself worrying about odd things. Will your flashlight go dead? Do rats carry rabies? If you screamed, how far would the sound carry? Would your buddies hear it? Would they have the courage to drag you out? In some respect, though not as many, the waiting outside the tunnel was worse than the tunnel itself. Imagination was a killer. Okay, your last 2 questions. You're gonna describe the things that aren't, what are some of the things soldiers carry that could not be weighed, right? Not things like that. What can't be weighed? It's not things you can touch, right? It's not things you can touch. The things,
Soil.
we're going to talk about it in just a second. Stop. We'll talk about it in just a second. When it says, what are some of the soldiers, sorry, I'm reading it off this. What are some things soldiers carried that could not be weighted, I should say. So, things that you can't touch. We just talked about things you can touch. What about things you can't touch? What weighs on a soldier, right, that you can't touch? Stop talking right now. And what does it mean, imagination is a killer? I want you to start answering those questions, and we will talk about it in about 3 minutes.